Tesla accounts for almost a fifth of the return that you have generated in that 5-year time span. Which of your current holdings, Cathie, do you think will supply the biggest lift in the next 5 years?
Tesla's still in the running, but I would have to say the biggest upside surprises are going to come from the genomic space. And that's because the convergence of DNA sequencing, artificial intelligence, and gene therapies, importantly, CRISPR gene editing, are going to cure disease. That convergence is going to cure disease. Now we have real science and technology surfacing the mutations in our genomic profile. And as they surface those mutations, what do we see? We see the earliest manifestations of disease. And now, with the combination of artificial intelligence and gene editing, we're able to both anticipate diseases and cure them potentially. Beta thalassemia, we're seeing it, sickle cell disease. We even think it will work in diabetes, which is where most, if you look at the largest category of spending year to year in healthcare, it's diabetes.
Cathie, another surprise for me in your portfolio attribution is that almost none of your performance, just 20 points out of 600 points, is from Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, the 4 biggest contributors to the S&P 500 over the same period. What about them doesn't make the grade for Cathie Wood and for ARK?
Well, we're not saying they'll be bad stocks at all. In fact, they've been very good stocks. And they were a part of our portfolios in the early days. But as they were scaling into the $1 trillion category, we believed that our research would be focused better on the next set of fangs. And I don't mean fangs meaning in the internet age. We actually think the next fangs are in the genomic age. And if you'll notice our flagship portfolio, the largest exposure is healthcare for that reason.
What would make you reconsider investing in those stocks?
What would encourage us to move back into that ilk of stock is a continuation of what we're seeing now, so that some of our valuations become stretched beyond our minimum hurdle rate of return. So our minimum hurdle rate of return for any stock entering our portfolio is 15% at a compound annual rate over the next 5 years. So that's the doubling over 5 years. We're not there yet, but if we're in the low 20s, which is much more than a doubling over 5 years, but if we started seeing more and more of our stocks lose that return expectation and drop below 15%, we would move back towards some of the FANGs and Microsoft because we would be treating them essentially as cash-like instruments for our strategy. So what we do is, as a bull market extends, we do move into more cash-like equities. They would be the less volatile stocks, and certainly the FANGs and Microsoft fit.
We've just been talking about Facebook and
Yes.
Google, Alphabet, things like that. Those are obviously huge successes. What's the next Facebook? Give me a tip.
Well, you're right. Those are trillion-dollar or approaching trillion-dollar companies. And so we don't own, actually, in our flagship fund, any of the FANG except for Netflix, because we are all about finding the next big thing. So the next big things involve our 5 disruptive innovation platforms. So DNA sequencing, robotics with collaborative robots, energy storage, electric vehicles, think Tesla, artificial intelligence. You can also think Tesla on that, but you can think about every company when it comes to AI. And then finally, blockchain technology. So we've had a lot of news on all of them, including blockchain technology and Square's positioning in that space.
So we'll come back to Tesla in a minute, but first of all, talk about genomics.
So genomics, we think, is the most underestimated and misunderstood of our disruptive innovation platforms. And the reason is we have never been able to really cure disease. Now that we're able to isolate mutations through DNA sequencing, think Illumina, that's the foundational stock in this space, we are able to understand where the programming errors in our genome are. And with CRISPR gene editing, increasingly we're beginning to believe we're going to be able to correct those programming errors. I'm going to give you a comparison today versus the tech and telecom bubble. If I had told you in the tech and telecom era that there would be 3 foundational stocks in the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing space, they own the patents. I would have told, and that they'd get a 10% royalty probably on any therapy derived from CRISPR-Cas9. They, given that we're talking about curing disease here, curing pediatric blindness, curing sickle cell anemia, beta thalassemia, leukemia, they probably would have accumulated to $200 to $300 billion in market cap.
So what's happening? Why did investors slam the brakes on Tesla stock today? The company's Gigafactory in Europe will remain shut after a nearby fire affected its power supply, and for obvious reasons, auto companies depend heavily on production for their success, so it was entirely understandable that investors would react negatively to a suspected case of arson near the site of one of Tesla's sprawling gigafactories. And following the news of this incident, which looks as if it will shut the facility for at least several days, market players largely traded out of Tesla stock. It closed Tuesday almost 4% lower, a steeper decline than the 1% in the S&P 500 index. A fire near a gigafactory cut power. A fire broke consumed an electricity pylon close to Tesla's factory near Berlin in Germany, and while the blaze didn't spread to the facility or cause any injuries there, it did deprive the site of power and thus necessitating a work stoppage. And according to reports on the incident citing the electric vehicle company, the damage caused will halt production until early next week at least, and emergency services in the area extinguished the fire, which also affected tens of thousands of electricity consumers in the area. And the news agency added that the shutdown will cost Tesla in the high hundreds of millions of euros. And on Tuesday alone, 1,000 vehicles in the factory were in an unfinished state. And German authorities are treating the incident as an arson attack. And Reuters quoted the economy minister of Brandenburg State, the region where the facility is located, as saying the incident bore terrorist markings. A letter allegedly written by an eco-activist organization known as the Volcano Group claimed responsibility for the incident, and the letter is being investigated as of right now. And here's where Elon Musk weighed in on X, the social media site previously known as Twitter. Tesla CEO Elon Musk wrote off the apparent perpetrators. These are either the dumbest eco-terrorists on earth or they are puppets of those who don't have good environmental goals. And is Tesla stock a phenomenal growth stock? What do you think, guys? Is Tesla stock still a very much growth stock? Tesla had some underrated competition in China. BYD is building plants outside of China and maybe getting ready to sell cars in the US, though it says that we might not do that. Investors should follow BYD to see the next catalyst for Tesla stock. Everybody knew that Tesla was going to see increasing competition in 2024. Ford was ramping up production of its F-150 Lightning, and General Motors would be greatly expanding its electric vehicle lineup. It turns out that the competition has increased, but not so much from those domestic legacy automakers. Both Ford and GM have greatly throttled back EV production plans, but another big automaker has somewhat unexpectedly become what looks to be Tesla's biggest competition. And it turns out Chinese EV maker BYD has ultimately surpassed Tesla to become the biggest seller of fully electric cars. And investors might want to dig into what that means for Tesla. And when it comes to growth stocks, they don't need to be a monopoly. Tesla has looked like anything but a growth stock this year. Shares have dropped 20% so far in 2024, but BYD's success also points to why Tesla can be a great growth stock again. And when BYD released a preliminary fourth quarter and full year 2023 update, it said that 2023 profit should come in 75% to 86% higher than the previous year due to record high sales. And that's after another big jump in sales in 2022. And BYD's success is coming as it has focused on lower priced mass market EVs. BYD has become the biggest seller of fully electric EVs, beating Tesla with over 525,000 battery electric vehicles sold in the Q4. And the Chinese automaker is increasing its exports as well. It recently introduced its least expensive EV in the South America, starting at $20,000. It also is reportedly thinking about building a factory in Mexico to ship vehicles into the US market. And Tesla has been teasing a lower priced EV for some time now and is expected to announce a launch of that product later this year. That is likely the catalyst that could get Tesla stock back into growth mode. It's working for BYD, and investors shouldn't count out Tesla from successfully joining that market. There should be room for more than one major supplier. And Motley Fool says forget Tesla and buy this magnificent auto stock instead, and the company is talking about here is Ferrari. High-end luxury has a place in the automotive industry. And the new year hasn't been kind to Tesla and its shareholders so far. The EV maker has reportedly disappointing Q4 financial results in Jan, and as of March 1st, shares are down 18% in 2024. Tesla is dealing with softer demand trends as well as worsening profitability. The EV stock currently sits at 50% of its all-time high, prompting some opportunistic investors to want to buy the dip. But before doing so, Motley Fool feels like it's best to consider another automotive stock right now, which is Ferrari. And it is not a typical car company. Investors are certainly familiar with Ferrari. The luxury automaker designs and produces some of the most expensive cars in the world, heavily influenced by the company's long racing heritage. It's not out of the ordinary for a new model to set you back upwards of $400,000 with exclusive limited edition models in the seven-figure range. And there are not many people who can afford these things. As a result, Ferrari doesn't make and sell that many. It has 13,600 units going to customers in 2023, and that figure seems alarmingly low at first glance, but to be clear, this has nothing to do with there being a shortage of demand. The executive team intentionally keeps volumes low in order to support the company's status as a true luxury brand. It's